Listen, that's the fun of a tournament, because sometimes you look at a top 8 and you got to ask the question, how did we get here? Because, you know, you could look at a graphic and it never tells the full story. But we got to determine the rest of how that story is written with the rest of this wave.
Are we sure we're here in person?
Hey, listen, that's how it goes.
Sometimes it feels like we're watching Wi-Fi, right? Because right now we've got Ike in the year 2023 here against Ness. Mega, one of the best players from NYU, and PkChris, I mean, needs no introduction, right? One of the best Ness players in the world, Long Island extraordinaire, and these two going head-to-head for winner side top 32.
Yes, and it's going to be kind of a tough sell on who can take it out from here, because while Chris himself is very confident against a lot of the sortie characters, has tons of experience when it comes to fighting against them back at home, there's not a lot of Pikes back at home anymore. A lot of them lay dormant or have retired since. But Mega, one of the tried and true of the character, has got to figure out a way to get in on Chris if he's going to look to leave some sort of an imprint on this set.
And the issue is that Ike doesn't have frame data. He doesn't really out-damage you. What he just has is, he doesn't even really out-kill power you. He's just got range, but Ness has so much more mobility. His buttons are so much lower commitment that he can bait you to swing and then punish you for that swing after the preemptive bait. And while you mentioned there aren't many Ikes in Long Island, I believe Ragnarok still plays the character.
Ragnarok is still alive and well, but even then, it's a matter of how often you run into the player, and doesn't get a chance to run into Chris. When it comes to the time-honored tradition of fighting against Ike, Chris is no stranger. We've had plenty of solid Ikes when it comes to Long Island.
Did he just...
Double down air? Oh, he loves that.
Yeah, I mean, the first one you can't tech because it's grounded, but the second one, certainly deckable, and Mega just not quite ready for a non-traditional option. Now forced into the juggle scenario, but smart reset to the corner. Chris didn't quite commit to the pressure, and the quick draw gonna give you a quick button back to stage, but not with your stock. PkChris managing to close it out regardless.
The way that Chris is playing this out, I think, is very smart, because he's taking advantage of one of the weaker aspects of Ike, probably the most exploitable at that. Poor ground speed, not the best when it comes to air control. This is a character that when he gets somewhere, yeah, he could bunker it down. He could control that space. But if he has to move there and do it at the same time, no, I don't know about all that.
Even like, you know, Mega will whiff a dash attack like we just saw, and PkChris is willing, I'm going to short hop and then delay my aerial because you're still not actionable by the time I'm falling down. Mega, though, able in these scramble situations, he's always been so good at just finding ways to make those stocks happen, right? Finding ways to just make you explode when you least expect it, and then just rack on damage. He takes an advantage state and sends it all the way, the footstool too, and suddenly...
Oh, with the taunt?
Yeah, suddenly... I was going to say, maybe this game's winnable. I mean, it might still be, but he's got to find his way back down first, and Ike doesn't really have the tools to do so against Ness. They call him, I mean, he's a 13-year-old with psychic powers, and it's not just because he's got magic fingers, it's also because he just knows where you're going to land, and there's nothing you can do to get away from it.
A lot of this matchup comes down to how well you could bait Ike into moving into a specific position, and then just punishing him for being there. Will he swing? Yes. Do you have to respect that swing? For majority of the cast, yes. His sword is big. And Ness, not especially so. Doesn't really have the disjoints to contest when it comes to buttons, but you can contest after those buttons swing, and especially while he lands. We saw a ton of that from Chris in game.
We have Cloud / Sephiroth at home. Sword big, but unlike those characters, he doesn't have an abnormally large sword nor really crazy movement attributes to really help him find his ways in. And so, as you said, right, he's just focused on walling out his opponents. He's focused on trying to catch you with these big committal options. And Chris has just been so tricky with his movement that it's only now, here in Game 2, that we're really seeing Mega actually find any opening, and even then, he has to work twice as hard as Chris to keep it going.
Yeah, it's simply a matter that if Ike hits you, you die. But you need to actually get those hits in. You need to clock in your damage before you really have a footprint in the match. And Mega's not finding a lot of those opportunities. A lot of the moves he's swinging around, Chris is just sort of waiting for him to be done with. And even then, the damage that he does find, it's just tit for tat. Not a lot of combos, and unfortunately for Mega, not a lot of solid stage positioning either.
Yeah, and one of the things that Mega really hasn't been able to do is get Chris above him, right? Get him in those juggle situations where Ike neutral air, Ike up air, forward air, give you so much versatility. Players like Luxa from New Hampshire, the current #2 in that region, in that state, are so good at, even if it's just a throw, getting you above them and then just juggling you, utilizing that big sword to its fullest advantage, using quick draw to chase your drift. And when you're fighting a character who's floaty like Ness and light, I mean, getting them in a juggle situation might be the play. Mega just hasn't been able to do so.
I mean, that would require him forcing Chris to respect any type of aerial pressure so you can get him on the ground, and then from there being able to grab him at all. But that's a whole lot of layers to a game plan that Mega has just not been around to play because Chris is just constantly able to hit him.
And even when he has found the juggle situations, like we just saw there twice, he's just missed the follow-ups, he's missed the juggles, his positioning has just been slightly off. And as you were talking about, right, Chris's movement has been so good that if you're not pixel perfect, you aren't hitting him.
Yeah, no, there's a certain confidence that's behind Chris. When he remembers how solid of a player he is, he's just sort of floating about. And there's hitboxes aplenty. Now, yes, Ness is no stranger to pressing a bunch of buttons and making you pay the price. Oh!
He made choices, and he will live in that bed. He will die in that bed. And right now, he might have tried to make a bed of roses, but he only got some thorn. Beautiful quick draw there. They're playing for the hit, Mega finding it, and suddenly he finds the most creative ways to go from getting blown up to finding ways magically to get himself back in this game.
Oh. But back in the game, it's going to be from a pretty far bit behind. He's on his last stock. Chris looking very fresh on his second. And as far as stage control goes, this has just been a consistent note throughout this set. Chris forcing the approach from Mega. And while, yes, Mega is making better decisions with the buttons and he is able to capitalize on them quite well, he's not really forcing Chris into a situation where he's not as comfortable moving, and that's the ticket.
I like the drag down attempt from Chris there into the downer, trying to get a mix-up. He's tried to catch Mega out so many times. Mega trying to line up a spike of his own, but just not finding it. I love the first jab we've seen from him all set long. As a get-off main option, Mega pulling out all the stops, but even if he does so, he still has another game to do so. And now in the corner against Ness, it is a hard day to be an Ike main right now, my friend.
Yeah, it's looking a little rough here. And Chris looking very comfortable, just like dashing in and out. Just a little bit of different positioning, and it would have been a back throw. We would have been calling it a day.
Yeah, well, hey, yeah, I'll put it this way. I don't know what I'll do,
nah,
but I will be mindful. I was going to say,
that.
I'll certainly eat them if he wins. I was going to say, I'll eat something if he wins.
Like,
if he wins this game, if we see a game 3, but
I would love it. I would love nothing more because it would be a
insane.
hell of an underdog story, but we're not going to get that in this game. Chris confidently moving across a 2-0
no
win.
dogs under anything. The only thing we see under ya is a Ness under that platform, sharking the landing once again for Mega. Game 2 ending much like Game 1. Mega, when he found the opening, took those inches and made them miles, but he just wasn't able to find them. Chris played so solid on the defense, and again, utilized that frame data advantage to its fullest. Really, he said, Mega, I'm going to make you swing, and then I'm just going to fade it back. And you're going to whiff your aerial, or you're going to get caught in your startup, and then I'm going to ferry you.
You know, it sounds like a very silly game plan of just whiff punish. It's almost like one of those like condescending things you say to someone who wants advice, like don't get hit, don't get grabbed. In a matchup like this, part of it fundamentally boils down to just wait for him to press a button. He's gonna press Nair because it's one of Ike's key tools to get anything started.
That was so gutsy from Chris too, though.
He likes to put on a show sometimes.
He went for the but he went for it directly next to him. It wasn't that he went for the read or he tried to get the Thunder combo hitbox. He just fully took it the long way around and was like, nah, you might have a big sword and be right in front of me and be fully actionable, but you're just not going to do anything. Unfortunately, he did, and, well, still was able to take the game, but had to work just a little bit harder for it. And
it gives us really our only landslide victory so far of the block. I'm curious to see if we get a chance to see more of those.
I mean, personally, I hope not, because as we talked about well before that break, you know, I like some good Smash Bros. You like some good Smash Bros.
Yeah, give
We're here
me
to be
a show.
talking about
I'm trying to see people scrap.
Yes,
I don't care if it's early in the evening.
Hey, man, listen. And if you want to hear a song about New York and scrapping, go listen to Jungle Land by Bruce Springsteen, because that's what it feels like, right? We've got some rats on the street, some broken hearts, and some love made to